is that people have been saying things, and now I want to change everything that I have written down here. And I originally titled this, Can UCSC Afford to Become Sustainable? And I've just changed it, Can UCSC Afford a Just Ecology? And I guess the question is, how can it not? But I want to actually talk about money and institutions and what's going on here under this sort of premise that you guys are here for 4 years, you're obviously learning things, but it's also a great opportunity to start to learn how to organize, mobilize, and act. And it's really important to acquire, I think, the tools, not just the abstract knowledge that a lot of classes provide, but also the tools that give you the skills and the competence and the courage to go out and actually start organizing, mobilizing, and acting. So I want to start out with a bit of a bummer here, because we're really at a campus which is facing a severe set of economic contradictions. And it suggests that the place is not being run very well, and that it's made certain kinds of choices and is making certain kinds of choices that are really working against this sort of idea of a just ecology, which I'm using just to avoid the term sustainable. And you know, part of it, and the thing is that I don't know how much you're aware of this, all right? Because a lot of this goes on at upper levels, a lot of the debates, and what happens is you see the impacts in terms of crowded classes or not being able to get into classes and overcrowded buses, things like that. But what's going on top is kind of opaque. I mean, it's even opaque to the faculty, because the administration oftentimes plays things very close to the vest. But there are several things that are going on here. First of all, the campus has made a commitment to graduate growth, to increasing PhD enrollments by a very significant amount. And this costs money. It costs a lot of money. And the campus doesn't have it. And so the administration, in concert with some of the faculty, has come up with a plan to try and generate revenues through the creation of master's programs, including master's programs in Silicon Valley. And the idea here is that you can wheedle people who have their bachelor's degrees and are maybe already working into paying premium prices to get a master's degree in some particular field in which, you know, the university has some advantage or specialization, maybe in exoplanet discovery, I don't know. And that will then provide all of this extra revenue that can be plowed back into the campus and into graduate, supporting PhD students. Now, part of the problem is we don't actually know if these programs will be successful and make this kind of money. And you actually lose money on these things the first few years before you ever make any money. So we're under this kind of contradictory situation. People are talking about what they call the budget envelope. The budget envelope, for those of you who know, is a kind of a zero-sum space, which is to say it doesn't get any bigger, and so everybody inside is struggling to keep their own sort of piece of the pie, and something has got to give. And so what's been giving is commitment to undergraduate education. Let me put it that way, that when it comes time to try and find money, it's coming out of undergraduate education. And that notwithstanding 800 more students and international students and all of these kinds of things, there isn't the revenues that could expand that are not there. And then there's this other contradiction, which is the space contradiction. 800 new students, no place to put them, no classrooms to put them in. My proposition is to just let people set up campgrounds up in the woods, but that doesn't go over very well. Oh, the other one is to have shifts, so that students basically, you know, they get to sleep 8 hours, but then someone else comes in and sleeps in the same bed, right? Then we could really accommodate. But, you know, I don't get listened to in that respect. The point, however, is that all of these things really do militate against any kind of systematic examination of how the campus could become a site for a just ecology. And, you know, and I'm not excluding community and all these kinds of things, but I do think we have to start where we are. And a lot of this then comes down to two things. The first one is that there's a real fragmentation of looking at the campus in terms of, and now I'll use the S word, how to make it sustainable. So I was looking at the last CSP Campus Sustainability Plan, which addresses 9 distinct sectors. And part of the problem is these are not distinct sectors. And what we don't do, what we can't afford to do, what we don't do, but what I think we have the capacity to do, is to actually do an integrated plan, which recognizes that food takes energy, that food waste can generate energy, that, all these kinds of things, and addresses housing questions in a coherent way. By the way, the campus building plan is running about $1 billion. This is for new housing and new buildings, and God knows where it's going to come from. I still don't understand exactly how that's going to be funded. But recognizing these things, and then figuring out how to accomplish the goals of an integrated plan rather than in this kind of fragmented sense. Now, and I think also taking into account the impacts of the university on the community, the ways in which the housing crisis that Miriam talked about is directly, in many ways, is the responsibility of the university for having expanded the way it has in the last 15 years. Not all of that is up to the university's choice. This expansion, this recent expansion is, tell me when to stop, was the cabal of two, Governor Brown and President Napolitano, basically sat down under threat from the legislature and said, well, okay, this many more students without any sort of consideration of the impacts. We're not the only campus that's being affected by it, but it's certainly going to have all these kinds of spillover effects. So I think I just want to sort of conclude with these two admonitions then. One is that we really have to think more holistically and in a more integral form about the institutions in which we live and work and play, and that means the university. And the second thing is, and this one I cannot emphasize enough, is that you do make an effort to learn not just the abstract stuff, but the technical stuff, how to analyze complex problems, how to go in and do something about them, to organize and to mobilize, and then after your 4 years to go home and act. Thanks.